Courtney, you're gonna have the peanut butter soup with smoked duck and mashed squash. New York Matinee called it a playful but mysterious little dish. You'll love it. And then the red snapper with violets and pine nuts. I think that'll follow nicely.
Thanks, Patrick.
Okay, ready to go. Let's go.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically, we talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, a.k.a. TV's Travis. This is episode number 320, and our movie this week from the year 2000 is American Psycho, and here to talk with me about it, it's Joe Hart. Joe, how are you?
Hi, it is just Joe. My
Joe.
ridiculous Discord name is a running joke. So I'm Joe. I'm reading Animorphs on TikTok.
All right.
Ta-da. I don't know.
Excellent.
Go from there.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm really happy to be here. I demanded it. I watched this movie and told my friend who knows you, I was like, get me on that podcast. I have things to say. So I have been holding it in for a while.
All right,
But
so
now I get to finally talk about this movie.
Absolutely. So what history did you have with American Psycho prior to watching it for the first time? Because it came out just over 25 years ago now. So what kind of a history, or how familiar with it were you?
I mean, I definitely seen the memes.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Fall Out Boy album, American Beauty, American Psycho,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know too much about it, except for that it seemed, I knew of its cultural place, especially because I study the online alt-right and like manosphere stuff. So I knew it spoke to people in those spheres, but I'd never watched it, and I really don't know what possessed me to be like, tonight's the night I'd check this movie off my to watch list, but I finally did, and so I have thoughts. It was not what I expected.
No.
I could, in a million years, I never would have guessed what song it was. He was listening on those headphones as he like walked into the office.
Yeah.
Like,
So
what?
Right. So this movie came out in 2000. I did not see it in a traditional theater. I actually saw it at a student theater on the campus of Michigan State University. We had one, you could go watch movies for like $1.50 or whatever it was. And I remember going and seeing things like Gladiator that year and this. Just I had nothing else to do. And kind of the same thing. Like at that time, so this is 2000, I'm a freshman in college, and I'm thinking, American Psycho, all right, this got, I've seen this dude in something before, but I had no idea what to expect. And I had seen, the year before, I'd seen Fight Club. And so I thought, well, maybe it'll be something similar to that. And it kind of is.
I've never seen Fight Club.
So there are similarities there.
I know of it.
But it's not the same thing. But I was not prepared for what it was. And my initial reaction to the movie, that viewing of it was, Like it didn't do anything for me at the time, but I thought the ending of it made the ambiguity of that ending, which we'll get to, was intriguing to me. But overall, it just didn't grab me right away. And then I kind of didn't.
Can we go straight into that?
Absolutely. No, we can.
Because I think my like overall, I was like, it's a good movie with great acting, but it had some serious flaws, and I think the ending was bad. Like, I think it ruined the movie bad.
Okay.
Like, the fact that it was so ambiguous, I feel like that's not the correct word, but here we are.
Close.
I feel like when I was watching it, they kept being like, okay, is it real? Is it not? I was like, okay, if it's real, then this is a movie about how the capitalistic society and that ever chasing money thing like causes someone who fully buys into it to harm others. But then I was like, or if it's not real, then it's about how that causes someone to internally crack and break down and harm themselves. And I liked both of those options, but since it chose neither, I was like, so it's about neither. And I thought it was just the worst choice it could have made by not making a decision and sticking to it.
And I actually go a little bit in a different direction, which is the ambiguity of it for me keeps it intriguing, because now as a piece of art out there, as a movie that somebody put out, it's open to how do you read that? Because and the reason I like that is, for me, I watched this movie, by the end of it, my thought is, okay, all of this just in his head. He's snapped, the cheese has slidden completely off his cracker, and he is out there where the buses don't run anymore. But I watch a lot of like movie breakdowns and sort of video essays, or I read reviews and I read people talk about film. And most of them talk about it being literal, like Patrick Bateman is a serial killer. He did kill these people. I view it as he didn't at all, but he thinks he did. And this whole thing was building up for him to have some kind of a release, and then he's not getting that. Because at the end of it, there's that perfect line where he says, all of this has been for nothing. And everything, and it's that unreliable narrator throughout the whole thing where you're right. As you're watching, you're like, is this real? Is it not? Like, what's going on? And the way they filmed it, the way they structured it really plays into that. There's a really cool thing they did. So, first off, Christian Bale is phenomenal in this. Like, his performance is great.
You will, the acting, except for one person who I think was miscast, which we can get, was phenomenal, great. You'll never hear me say anything bad about the acting, asterisk. But I specifically, because I knew I was coming onto this podcast, did not go look at anyone else's reaction.
Sure.
I was like, I want to, but I want to keep it pure. And I actually, because I did watch it about 2 months ago now, I tried to rewatch it closer to being here. And I couldn't get through it a second time. Like, I was like, I think because now that I know how it ends and I know that there's no, I feel like it threw away all of the potential interesting points it could make by not making a point. I was like, I'm bored and I'm uncomfortable and it's not interesting.
No,
so I dipped out the second time about when he got to the homeless man. That's as far as I got the second time. I couldn't do it.
And to be fair, if you're not going, like, if you are watching this for a second time and you don't buy into the way it ends and the ambiguity of that, it's a rough thing to watch, because there are no, save the homeless man, there are no good people in this movie. Like, none at all. He is just obviously he slipped through the cracks and all of that. He's also played by Reg E. Cathy, plays that homeless man, who is a favorite of mine. My brain will connect actors to roles I saw, when I was younger all the time. And every time I see him, it takes me back to watching on PBS Square One TV back in the late 80s. It was a math-based educational show, and he was a part of that. And so every time I see him in something, it's like getting wrapped up in a warm blanket. Plus, he's got that wonderful baritone voice. And so I love seeing that, and I'd completely forgotten that he was in this. And of course, that scene is horrific. The book, so this is based on a novel. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, I did, and I have not read it. But I knew it was a novel.
If you don't like the movie, I don't know that you're going to want to watch or going to want to read the novel, because it's far more and far worse. Like, everything that they had to tone it down a lot just to get it to an R-rated film.
See, and it's not like I'm not someone who's super squeamish and awful, and like, it's not that I didn't vibe with, because like I said, I think it's a good movie. I think it's solid, and I am glad I watched it once, and definitely on the first watch through, it was very engaging, and it made me uncomfortable, like, for a point. Like, that's what they were going for, and I think they did it well. There were a few things that I was like, I feel like you're just edgy to be edgy at this point, but I think most of it was done really well. I just, like I said, that ending deflated it for me in a way. But I definitely see why people would really love this movie and why it has the cultural impact. I just personally go, and I'm just someone who I will always hate. There are very, very few ambiguous endings
Hmm.
that I like. I think
Okay.
it's something that are swing and a miss like 95% of the time. I can think of literally one that I went, oh, that's an ambiguous ending I actually really like. Usually I'm like, say something, say it with your chest.
And I, from the flip side of that, I really enjoy. Now it has to be done well, and that's a very good point that you bring up. Is they can very, very much miss the mark. It's like a good twist in a movie. If you have a movie that has a twist, when it's done well, great, love them. When they're not done well or they're too signposted ahead of time, then it's like, all right, we could have done that better. But I when a movie has an ambiguous thing going on, what I like about that is it's now going to give the viewer something out of that. Or sometimes I've watched ambiguous movies and I read it different when I see it again. So I might watch it and then I watch it a few years later and I'm such a different person by that point that it hits me differently. And I think that was part of this time around. So the first time I watched this, I didn't get into the performances, especially Christian Bale's, because of how almost robotic he is in so many things. Mm-hmm. But I was 19 at the time and 18, 19, and I wasn't developed enough to really kind of pinpoint like, oh no, he's not just that he's a wackadoodle, but also like watching it this time, he feels like almost like an alien pretending to be a human, and all of the things that this is what a human would do, except for emotions and empathy. He has none of that at all. But he does things like probably the most famous scene in this is the Huey Lewis in the News, scene in his apartment where he kills Jared Leto's character, Paul Allen. In my notes, by the way, I had, this movie does one of my favorite things, which is kill Jared Leto's character. He's a fine actor, but most times when he shows up in a movie, I'm just like, yep, punchable face. And it's not his fault. He just is really good at that.
I've heard nothing but like, he seems like not a great person to work with. That's all my context for Jared Leto. I
mean, he does kind of give off the persona of the method actor that is just edgy to be edgy. And I have a rant about method acting that I will not subject you to. Oh no, by all means, subject me to that. Okay. I'd love to hear it.
I think method actors, by virtue of being method actors, are not good actors because they cannot do half the job. Which half of the job is being able to go fully into the character, be so immersive that people believe you are this person, and the other half is being able to step out and be yourself again and flip back. And if you are incapable of doing that, you are not a good actor. You can't do half the job. And I think it's just such a cop-out. And that is someone who, like, I have professional acting training, and this opinion does come straight from one of my teachers, but you know what? She was correct. And I think when someone's like, I'm a method actor, I'm like, okay, then you suck. Bye. It doesn't matter how good your performance is.
And it walks such a fine line because you get somebody like, say, Jim Carrey in Man on the Moon. The performance is phenomenal. But then you hear the stories about what he was like to deal with, and you're like, okay, that's maybe a bit too much. Jared Leto's stories, Daniel Day-Lewis stuff where they, my left foot, he didn't walk. He made people push him around in the wheelchair. Even Christian Bale in this movie went very method. So this was I want to say second or maybe third movie with Christian Bale in it that I consciously thought, like I think I had seen, was it Newsies he was in as a kid? Is that the Spielberg one? I can't remember. There was Empire of the Sun. Sorry. He might have been in Newsies too, but there was some stuff he did when he was real young that I may have seen in school, but I don't recall. But I remember seeing this, and I remember seeing him in the late 90s Shaft remake with Samuel L. Jackson. And in both those movies, he's playing an American. And he does a very good American accent. Apparently, he never stopped using that. I was
today years old when I found out Christian Bale's not American. Okay, continue.
Yeah, so he's Welsh. And it was several years before I saw him in a movie using his natural Welsh accent. And I had no idea, because not only does he do it well in the movie, but apparently he would never stop using that accent, including in press and on set and all of that. So he went very method in this.
I don't think of that as like full method or anything. Like, I think that's fine because honestly, accents are hard.
They
Like,
are.
and that's like a piece of it. I'm talking about the people who are like, I am fully going to live as this character. Because like I hear one of the ones is like Heath Ledger's Joker. People are like, he was so method because he lived in this motel room for a certain amount to get the posture. I'm like, that's not what I mean.
Yeah, that's not
when
the
I say
same
method
thing.
acting. I'm talking about the people who like are like, I am this person 24/7. That's where I'm like, goodbye. No.
Yeah, and I did read where Bale on this set did kind of distance himself from people and kind of kept himself isolated. So he didn't quite go to the Jared Leto levels of method where, he's sending people gifts as the Joker and all that kind of dumb stuff. He really dove into it, but this was something that he wanted so the novel written by Brett Easton Ellis was published in 1991. And he at the time had a novel of his from a few years earlier made into a movie, Less Than Zero. And he didn't really love the movie adaptation, and then he wrote this book and he thought, well, this is unfilmable. There's no way anybody could make a movie based on this book because it's just out, like I said, it's so much more than what this movie goes into. He's got even like cannibalism in a lot of what he does and all of this. But a producer, Edward Pressman, was like, I want to make this a movie, and bought the rights to it like a year later. So he buys the rights in 92 and spends most of the 90s trying to get it made. Lionsgate ends up picking it up and saying, all right, we're going to make this movie. They had a director in place, actually the director of this, who did end up doing it, Mary Herron. But Lionsgate wanted Leo DiCaprio. And she was like, I heard
about this.
Yeah, and he wanted to do it. So they bumped up the budget, and we're going to have DiCaprio do it. And she's like, well, I wanted Christian Bale. I don't want to direct him in this movie. And so they fired her and brought in Oliver Stone, was about to direct this. That ended up not working out. Oliver Stone left. Leo DiCaprio left to go make The Beach with Danny Boyle. And Lionsgate came back to her, Mary Herron, and said, okay, can you make this movie? And she said, fine, if I can have Christian Bale. She wanted him. And Christian Bale, to his credit, really wanted this role enough that he didn't do auditions for like 9 months hoping that he would get this role, that's betting on yourself.
Wild. Yeah. Well, he really did an amazing job. Like I said, the acting was phenomenal. There is one person who I think was miscast though, and that is Reese Witherspoon.
She did feel, and I had watched stuff with her in this era, and something felt off in her performance to me.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the directing she got. I don't know if she had an acting coach that led her wrong a little bit. But when I was like watching her character, I'm like, okay, so you're going to be married to this person who it's clearly not for love. It's clearly not because, she thinks he's this wonderful person, whatever. She's there for the money, the status, the lifestyle. And she just didn't come across as someone there she came across too sweet, too nice. And I was starting to think that maybe I was misinterpreting her character. Like maybe part of it was he is supposed to hurt this woman who really is sweet and kind and in love with him and all that. And then it got to when he like dumped her at the table and she's just like throwing this big fit. And I'm like, so she is supposed to be a attention loving, like, and I just didn't get it. And I just think it was a miscasting. I think someone else could have brought that character to life better. Nothing against Reese Witherspoon.
No.
I love her in so many things. She seems like a lovely person. But this one, I'm like, this was a miss.
And it's interesting because I want to say it was about a year ago, maybe now, I saw her in a movie called Freeway that she is not what you would normally consider to be like Reese Witherspoon. But there's a warmth to her as just a person that makes it difficult to reconcile her as this, superficial yuppie character like the rest of these characters are. Because the opening scene in this is just 4 dudes sitting around a table that I just want to kick every one of them right in the junk repeatedly.
They're awful people.
They are. And Josh Lucas is so good at playing those types of characters. Like there's actors that are, you see them in something, you see interviews with them and they're lovely people. They're great interviews. They seem genuine, but they're just so good at playing those characters. And Josh Lucas is one of them. You just want to punch him every time. Yeah.
And that was unfortunate though, because I love Reese Witherspoon. There was another movie I saw her in. It was like what was it called? It was with the guy who plays Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and she was like running for a school campaign.
Election. Election.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she also didn't seem like a Reese Witherspoon character to me, but I thought she actually did a really good job. So I was just like, oh, okay, she has the range for that more than I had just personally ever seen her in. But this one, it just didn't hit.
No, and some of that might just be that everyone else was so well cast. There wasn't a lot of like, maybe not. Like it was 10 out of 10 castings, and then one that just didn't quite fit. Like she's not bad, but she just doesn't fit in this movie.
Exactly. Like all the next to 10 out of 10 castings all across the board, 8 out of 10 casting, you notice it.
Yep, exactly.
So I would love to see someone else's take on the role. Like if they ever remade this, which I don't think they need to at all, but if they ever did, I would just be like, I hope they get that character right this time.
Well, they don't need to, but apparently I have read that there is some folks trying to do a remake of this. I don't know how you do that, honestly. Like I'm with you. I don't think it needs a remake at all. There's just, because it would be so difficult to recapture this version of a different version of Patrick Bateman, right? There's just like, there's some roles, it's like casting someone else to play Hannibal Lecter. Like that's a tall order. I think they did it once maybe and it sort of worked, but like it's not Anthony Hopkins. So it's just, it's hard to do.
I agree. But speaking of other takes on Patrick Bateman, I have been practicing his monologue for this because, like I said, I do have professional acting training and I've been out of it for a few years, so this is not my best. But I really want to do it because I was watching this movie going like, oh, that'd be a fun character to play though.
I mean, in truth, Patrick Bateman would be a fun character to play.
Yeah.
So, all right. Go for it. I'd love to hear it.
Okay. So, disclaimers. I haven't acted in a few years, so I am a little rusty. And I have been busy, so I did not have time to fully memorize this.
That's all right.
So this shall be a reading.
Sure.
Oh gosh,
Oh no, the teleprompter fell down.
Actually, I do need to put this somewhere where it's not
not a problem.
So low where I can. Yeah, but okay. If there's a loud crash and I suddenly stop, we can just do a take two. My name is Patrick Bateman. I'm 27 years old. I believe in taking care of myself and a balanced diet and a rigorous exercise routine. In the morning, if my face is a little puffy, I'll put on an ice pack while doing my stomach crunches. I can do 1,000 now. After I remove the ice pack, I use a deep pore cleanser lotion. In the shower, I use a water-activated gel cleanser, then a honey almond body scrub, and on the face, an exfoliating gel scrub. Then apply an herbal mint facial mask, which I leave on for 10 minutes while I prepare the rest of my routine. I always use an aftershave lotion with little or no alcohol because alcohol dries your face out and makes you look older. Then moisturizer, then an anti-aging eye balm, followed by a final moisturizing protective lotion. There's an idea of a Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me. Only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold gaze and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there. And
That
see.
So what I love about that is it is exactly the same and completely different than what Christian Bale did. Like it is such a cool, different way to interpret that. That was fun. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you. I am glad you enjoyed it. In my head I'm like, I could have done it better, but that's
Of course.
I think the artist's curse.
Yeah. Every time. Every
But
time I
don't-
do a read, I always think the same thing. So
Yeah. I
Um,
just like looking at it now through a 2025 lens. When I was watching that, I was like, I could picture an influencer doing this on TikTok, and
Yeah.
it would be until that like last little bit, no change, and it wouldn't be weird.
And I think that's why, like, that opening bit is why the ending being ambiguous works for me, because he set us up right away that he's not reliable in any way in any of this story that he's telling us. And so, and this idea, like, honestly, I'm not even sure if Patrick Bateman is who he is based off of his interactions. It's tough, like, but I kind of like that, and I like kind of I like trying to deconstruct that and figure out, well, okay, why did this person call him this name? Like, I get why Paul calls him the wrong name because he's dressed very similar, and sort of the idea that all these yuppies are effectively just cookie cutter versions, right? They all look
Yeah.
roughly the same. But then why would his lawyer that he called and had his big confession to be calling him a completely different name, and think that it's funny that he chose Patrick Bateman as the name to say that he was, and all this? Like, what is that about? Unless this guy isn't actually Patrick Bateman. He's just been telling us he is the entire movie. So those are the kinds of things. And then my brain tries to chew on that and makes the ending work for me.
That's an interesting thought. But I'm now hearing. Okay, it's gone. That's an interesting thought on that. I guess I feel like one of the reasons the ambiguity doesn't really work for me in this one is because this movie is not really like, those are all good thoughts on the character of Patrick Bateman, but I don't really think this movie at its core is about Patrick Bateman. Like, it has this bigger message. It's about society and what it does to us, and it's trying to like say something. And I love stories like that, but I also feel like the ambiguity doesn't work, because then what your message is now nothing. Whereas if it was through the lens of a more character driven, who is this guy story, I can see why people might enjoy that interpretation more. That's just not my thing.
Sure.
Like, I definitely enjoy things like that, but I don't see this movie as falling into that category of story.
That's fair. That's a good way to read it. I mean, that's one of the things I love about film in general, is that I can watch a movie, you can watch a movie, we can take two different things away from it. Neither of us are incorrect. It's just a way we interpreted the art and the way that the filmmaker laid it out there. It's one of the reasons that I have gotten really into a lot of David Lynch's movies in the last few years, because he's just sort of like, I'm going to make something weird and put it out there, and y'all figure it out. Like, you make of it what you will. You know, I'm over here like making fun of soap operas. Like, why does the lady carry a log around in Twin Peaks? No one knows. Am I going to tell you? Nope. You make of that what you will. There's something to that I really like, because you can show it to 100 people and get, 70 or 80 different versions of why these things happen. To me, that's really fascinating. But
Yeah, and I know that is not my thing when it comes to art. And I respect it, but I would be sitting there going like, so what was the point? Why? Why is this like this? And if your answer is whatever you want it to be, I'm like, great. So there's no answer and I'm bored. Goodbye. But that's just me. That's why, like, I'm currently reading Sunrise on the Reaping, which I think is the most in your face with the Hunger Games messaging. It's like, this is my point. And I personally really like that. So far, it's been my favorite Hunger Games book because of that. But I was talking to one of my friends, and she's like, it's too on the nose for me.
And
So
one of the things I like is having all of these different types of stories out there, because I do also very much enjoy when a story is like, this is my message, this is what I want to tell you, or an artist is like, yeah, no, that's what I was going for in my song or in my book or in my movie. So I like both sides of that. And I think that what it does is it allows for conversations to then come out of it, because if I'm watching something like American Psycho and I'm getting one thing out of it, and you're watching it, you're getting something else out of it, we can go back and forth with that, and we can talk about, well, why is that, or how did that affect you, or anything like that, which is ultimately what I enjoy doing, is just talking to people and, looking at the art of filmmaking and how they do things. Like, I loved how the conversations with, and we haven't even talked about him yet, Willem Dafoe, as Donald Kimball in this. I loved how, number one, his performance was a lot of fun. And here's a cool thing I read, is that those scenes with him in the office and over lunch, where he's effectively investigating, but not, he's like trying to fish for information. Mary Herron would film him do 3 different takes. And she would have him do a take where Kimball obviously thinks that Patrick Bateman killed Paul Allen. And then she would have him do a take where he's not entirely sure, so he's kind of fishing for it. And then another one where he just doesn't think he did it at all. And so she would do 3 takes of all of that, and then in the edit, piece those together. So it's really almost disjointed and kind of funky the way that it's going. And I liked that from the performance aspect.
that's really cool.
And then the way... Yeah, but also just the way that they shot it too, where like it would be kind of a wider shot, and then he would ask a question that was very either leading or trying to get information, and all of a sudden it would push in real close on both of them, and then it kept backing in and out, and I just liked the way all of that was, because it wasn't the uncomfortable moments in the movie, but the way it was shot made me a little bit uncomfortable. Because I'm like, oh, can we back away from his face? Like
the cinematography and the art of the movie, like, bulletproof. They're phenomenal. I can see why. So when I first watched it, I went, I do not see why this is in the film canon. Like, I'm like, I don't think it earned it. It's good, but it's not great. But as I've sat with it, I have liked it more, and I'm like, okay, now I see why. I still stand by I liked it. I didn't love it. But I definitely think the piece of art that it is really impressive. And I feel like I had something else to say there, but I forgot what it was in the middle of it.
Sometimes movies come along that are really well done, but you don't have a desire to like watch them again. You can appreciate it, and it's like, all right.
It's funny to me that I like it more now after a couple months, but I tried to rewatch it yesterday, thinking like maybe I could enjoy that side of it more and still get something else out of it and have it more fresh for this. And I couldn't. So I'm like, I like it more, but I also, maybe in a few years, I'd be more willing to watch it again. But yeah, I feel like going back to that idea of like some movies are like why and all that, because I do like that when it's done well, but I think a good balance is between like I have a message, I'm saying something, and what do you think it is? Is my personal favorite movie of all time, The Matrix.
Yeah.
I think that's a great one where it's like when the Wachowskis say, it's about being a trans woman, I can watch it and go like, absolutely, I 100% get that. But then when other people talk about here's what I got from it, I'm like, yeah, I 100% get that too. So I do think there's a balance, and I can enjoy that type of cinema.
Sure.
But I don't think it's just ever going to be my favorite. But
I get that.
I don't know. This movie, American Psycho, it's weird, and I like that it's weird, but I don't love it.
It's weird because, again, like Patrick Bateman as a character is trying to be something, but he doesn't know what he's supposed to be. And so he's like he has this idea in his head about, oh, I'm going to talk about music, and his recitations about, Huey Lewis or Phil Collins are robotic, and like you get this sense that Patrick has rehearsed this over and over to get it down to like this patter that he's going to use to talk about Huey Lewis and the News. Because if you listen to what he's saying about that song and about that album, it is the most surface level reading of what that album could possibly be, disguised as this deep philosophical thoughts on the music. And
I loved that running bit in the movie, how he's like he wants to be so into music, which is art and emotion and all that, and he just clearly is failing so bad. And I loved that running bit.
Oh,
and
it was great.
I don't think I'll ever get over the fact that it was Walking on Sunshine. Never would have.
So the music in this movie is the biggest part of the budget went to that, because this was made for, it ended up having an estimated budget of somewhere around $7 million, which is virtually nothing in making a film, even in the late 90s.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Part of that is Christian Bale was not a big star yet, so they didn't have to pay him a lot. This was director Mary Herron's second feature film, so they probably were able to not pay her a ton. Nobody in this at the time were huge stars. Like Reese Witherspoon was known, Willem Dafoe was known, but they weren't stars yet. So they didn't have to pay him a whole lot. But the music, there was a ton of music in this, and they definitely had to pay for Phil Collins. They had to pay for Huey Lewis. Although famously, they put a soundtrack album out, and it had Hip to Be Square on it initially, and then they hadn't bought the proper rights to put it on the soundtrack album. They paid for it to be in the movie, but not the album, so they had to recall the album. And there was a rumor for a long time that it was Huey Lewis had not wanted his song associated with the movie, but that was kind of put to bed. Like, no, it wasn't really that. It was just a distribution rights issue, because media rights are a pain. But Walking on Sunshine was the Robert Palmer song that he's listening to in the car, because he's always got his ever-present headphones, right? But it's not. Yep. It's not the headphones of today. It's not your AirPods or even like the white old school iPod. Nope. It's the 1980s Sony sat on your ear, and if you wore them for too long, your ears got tired and worn out. I don't know if you ever wore those or not, but they were uncomfortable. They were not great to listen to for long periods of time. The foam that they put on those was a millimeter, maybe. It was just nothing. And it had the exposed metal band. They were terrible headphones, but everybody had them. You had it for your Walkman. And I just love that he's always got those on, listening to just all sorts of stuff. Because you're right. He wants to get into music, but like as a entity, he has no emotions, and so he can't connect with it, but he tries to. And there's that
something
go ahead.
I was gonna say, something I noticed when I was working on that monologue and trying to get into it is how like truly sad and empty it felt when I felt like I got it more when I was getting closer and closer to the character. I was like, the more disconnected, the more like internally worthless that I put into, what is this person's life like? The more alone, the more distance, the closer I felt like, oh, I'm getting to this character.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sad. Like even though I'm not 100% happy with my performance, I'm going to keep working on this monologue just for the fun of it.
Good.
Like it's a very sad character that whether or not, if you're trying to feel empathy for them, for this guy or girl or whoever's playing this entity, Patrick Bateman, it's awful. Their life is awful. Mm-hmm. And I feel bad for them. And I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, because there's so much of the 80s yuppie culture was commercialism and material. And that the material and the wealth gave you the status and gave you the worth, right? It was everybody in this movie is just about status and what things look like. I've got some audio clips I can play. I'd like to play it here in a bit of Patrick, but also some of his friends and some of the things that people in this were saying, where it's just this like, it's this shallow world, and that's all they have are these materials. So all Patrick has at 27 is his skincare routine and his workout and what he thinks is supposed to be a good professional, persona, and getting the right tables at the right restaurants and watching whatever movie it's supposed to be, or, having the job. And I like how he's Wall Street guy, right? He's got big vice president job, doesn't do anything. We never see him actually work in the entire movie.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I think the movie is very poignant today as well, because if you look at what are some of the biggest things on social media, it's beauty, it's workout, it's, the statistic of like Gen Z doesn't go out and party anymore because they're all at home doing their 10-step skincare routine and going to bed by a certain time and doing all the things to hustle culture and all that. And it's very poignant. I was watching it going like, yeah, that's why I did it, the monologue, as an influencer, because I'm like, it's the same messaging there. And honestly, the thing that surprised me most watching it versus the impression I had of it like as a cultural object is how much of an absolute loser Patrick Bateman is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, with all I'd seen about it, I knew in theory it was one of those movies that was critiquing the thing, but I thought kind of like Wolf of Wall Street.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's critiquing it, but it kind of glamorizes it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was one of those movies where it would be like kind of easy to miss, kind of make it look cool, like he's this suave, cool guy, but he's awful because he doesn't. No, he's a massive loser from start to finish, and it's not even subtle. And I was shocked about that. That was the main thing that I was watching this movie going, y'all told me wrong.
And I think some of that comes from there's definitely a subset of people that would see this movie and then take the wrong lessons from it, take the wrong reading of who Patrick was. I saw a similar thing with, and I know you haven't seen it, but the movie Fight Club. A lot of people misinterpreted that, and it's not. It's a teardown of hypermasculinity. It's not glorifying it, but it's in its presentation. It makes Brad Pitt look really cool, but in fact, he isn't.
Yeah, and I kind of expected it to be like that, because I knew it was one of those movies that is critiquing the thing people think it's. But yeah. I don't know how even the people it's critiquing could watch this. Like, it is the most, wait, is this fucking play about us? like, movie. And the fact that he idolized Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, in the late 80s and into the 90s, there were a lot of people that did. And I don't get it, but no, I agree with you in that he at no point in this does he really put out, he's trying to be cool. He just isn't. He's lonely. He lives alone, but he's got his clean apartment. I guess in the book, his apartment over time gets more and more disheveled. But in the movie, it doesn't. He just moves to a different apartment, which there again, kind of coming back to my whole idea that it's all in his head, is when he goes back to the apartment at the end and the real estate agent is showing it and it's all clean and painted over and all that kind of stuff. So I interpret that as, so he never actually took anybody to that apartment. He never actually killed anyone in there. Like I
definitely think between the two interpretations, I leaned more towards it's all in his head.
Okay.
Between the two. I also, because of that apartment scene and stuff like that. But yeah, the fact that it wasn't one or the other is just always going to be my biggest critique of the movie, even though I understand that a lot of people like it for that reason. I think maybe it could be just the plane of Christian Bale's really attractive man
Yeah.
Could purely be like, well, and I also think the fact that he did a few years later play Batman,
Mm-hmm. Oh, for
so
sure.
kind of like the retrospective of like, well, he plays this really cool, suave, kind of weirdo character. What if this other, But the only thing I can get is like Christian Bale attractive was the only thing that I was watching that movie going like, maybe this is it. Maybe you just want to look like Christian Bale.
Which
I don't know.
It's not the worst thing. But
Uh.
yeah, Bateman is just an odd duck of a character. Is really all I can get out of it. I got a couple of these clips. I got to play some of these because they're rattling in my head.
Yeah.
And first off, when they're all, this is towards the beginning of it. This was just such an 80s moment. They're in one of the clubs. I don't remember which one. And one of the guys comes back from the bathroom.
They don't have a good bathroom to do coke in.
They don't have a good bathroom to do coke in. I guess that's what you care about. Okay.
I guess. What makes something a good bathroom to do coke in versus not? Like,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I honestly don't know.
me either.
In the book, there was, from what I understand, there's a little bit more discussion about the AIDS epidemic at the time because it was, the book was published in 91, so it was a lot fresher of a newer of a thing at the time. They don't talk about it a lot here, but there is a moment where they're at one of the clubs and it's lightly touched on, but it was the way this conversation ended, this line here.
I'm not sure, guy, but I don't think dyslexia is a virus.
But who knows? They don't know that. Prove it.
Dyslexia isn't a virus, and the guy is talking to, his response is like, well, who knows? Prove it. That felt like a conversation I might hear today, which is a bit of a problem. Yeah, it's concerning that this is from a 25-year-old movie based off of a 35-year-old book, and it's still prescient today. I didn't love it.
I mean, I think that's true with the vast majority of the movie.
Yeah.
But speaking of the time, there was one scene that I found particularly interesting was where he goes to like probably kill the one obviously closeted queer man, and the guy takes it as him coming on to Patrick Bateman.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Patrick Bateman's reaction to that was fascinating because it felt like one of those things where there was a different choice there that could have made it not only a wildly different movie, but like a wildly different journey for Patrick Bateman of like,
for sure.
I think he kind of had this like, oh, this is a choice I could make. Like I fully think, at least in my interpretation of watching it, Patrick Bateman had a like, am I into this? And ran away because I think the answer was yes.
Yeah, because
and I can see it being gone either way, but that was my interpretation. And I was like, go for it. Be happy. Have some love in your life.
Because it kind of comes back to Patrick Bateman being this idea of a person, and that this man thinks there is something he is supposed to be. And in the case of that situation, he's now questioning that, and he doesn't know how to deal with it, so he just runs. Because that scene, the way it plays out, as the guy Lewis is like, oh, this is great, I've been waiting for this for so long, and Patrick's like, doesn't know what to do. He literally goes to wash his hands. He's wearing gloves, and he's just washing his gloves, and like freaks out and leaves. It was a really fascinating scene that, you're right, like it could have gone in a very different way. It didn't, and I'm with you. He should just lean into that and be happy, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Like I feel bad for him, and especially since you and I both kind of take it as just a guy having a mental breakdown, like let queer love save the day.
Sure.
I'm sure there's a fan fiction somewhere where that scene went very differently, and I am happy for that version of Patrick Bateman.
If Patrick is a happier person, then all for it, you know? Yeah, it was Lewis, and then there's the scene later when he brings Jean Chloe Sevigny back to his apartment, and you keep waiting. So at this point in the movie, we've had him, take Paul out and then bring him back to the apartment and kill Paul there. And we had him, I think, kill one other person. And then he's got Jean there. And so you're set up for it. You're waiting for that payoff. And first it's him going into the kitchen. And he says, as he's going into the kitchen, I think, is when he says, what is it? Something about not being able to control it, like control himself.
Yeah.
And then he's going in looking for the knife, like he's looking over all his weapons. He grabs the duct tape, and he's like, "Nope, I'm going to put this back. Never mind." And he gets the nail gun, and somehow makes it from his kitchen to behind the sofa without her noticing he's carrying a nail gun, which I find hilarious, but sure.
Sure.
And right up to the moment where he's going to do it, and then he backs away, like he can't do that. I like how that all played out. And she's completely unaware of it and leaves and thinks, like, they're having basically two different conversations about it not being safe for her there. She doesn't want to get hurt, but she's thinking emotionally. And he's like, I don't want to hurt you, as in I don't want to spread your brain matter around my apartment.
And I was so glad that she not only did not get murdered by him, but also did not end up in any sort of romantic relationship with him, because she can do better.
Yeah. Yeah, she is.
The other awful yuppie guy, sure, go be happy in your terrible lives together and live less terrible lives together. But the way I was just like, no, girl, no, don't do it. You deserve better than this man. I don't care that he looks like Christian Bale. Move on. Don't do it.
Yeah. And I'll amend my previous statement. The homeless man played by Reggie Cathy, and Jean. Jean is a decent person.
Yep.
Yep. So, yeah, just how all of that played out, and like, it was really cool.
But I liked it too. I liked the subversion of expectations.
Mm-hmm. And a stigma in the chat brings up that there's the phone message from Reese Witherspoon as well that stops him, because that starts going on. And that has him putting things down. And as I'm watching, I was like, oh, yeah, she has a character in this movie. I'd forgotten about her at that point because we hadn't seen her for like 40 minutes.
Yeah. Since I can't see the chat, hi, chat. Hope you're doing well. If tell him to tell me stuff if
yes, by all means.
You want to hear my opinions on things, which I don't know. Hopefully you do.
So this is a line from Patrick Bateman that tells you a lot about him. And it's towards the beginning when they're in the car going to dinner, him and Reese, him and Evelyn, I think is her name. And
I think so.
She's complaining about his job or something about that. And then we have this exchange.
See why you just don't quit.
Because I want to fit in.
That's his driving force. He wants to fit in. Doesn't matter. That's why he listens to the music that he does, or likes the food that he does, goes to the restaurants. Because the book, I did see where the book will talk about the food at the restaurants that they go to in much greater detail. And in here we just kind of see it. But no, like, all of that was hyper pretentious, just garbage. Like, it sounded terrible. Peanut butter soup with mashed squash or whatever the hell else was in there. And I think the one waiter at the beginning of the movie talks about a salmon meatloaf. That sounds terrible.
Like, he is such a sad character. Like, just completely doing everything just to fit in. Because didn't I think just before that, when they're talking, she's like, your dad owns the company. Like, he doesn't even have to work. He's independently wealthy. And just to fit in, he needed like more Disney Channel growing up as a child. You know, that whole like,
right?
Just be yourself and stand out. And
absolutely.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, he really is a great warning of a character.
Yes.
Like, you're supposed to look at him and go like, oh, this is what I could be if I make all the wrong decisions and care about all the wrong things. And I especially over the course of this conversation, I'm just like, wow, Patrick Bateman, my poor dude.
Yeah, just every choice he made was wrong. Every interaction he had with other people was terrible because he never looked at anyone as a human, right? He would look at them as
even himself.
objects, even himself. But like the whole scene with the homeless man where he's like, why don't you just get a job? Like that old thing. And he just looks down on this man, or the way he treats the women that he interacts with. They're just arm candy. They're just status symbols. They're just objects to create the reality of Patrick Bateman, the entity. And it's kind of
Which, even
sad.
taking the ending kind of in the more it wasn't real, I still think he killed that homeless man. Like, I think that might have been the one actual murder in the movie.
Probably.
And I think it could also be interesting to look at it as like he has a mental breakdown because of that, because he finally got to the point where he treated someone, thought of someone so worthless that he actually took a life and couldn't handle that. And that's why he lost his mind. That was like the straw that broke the camel's back. This thing of like, well, he's like, well, if I really am so empty and detached and all this, I bet all this other goes as well. I think that could be a really interesting take on the movie.
That is an interesting take. I like that because that kind of feeds into it, because that is sort of, in a way, a turning point in the movie where it really ramps up after that. It really starts to go down that hole. Because
I think that's why I kind of noped out at that point
Sure.
the second time, because I was like, I'm already kind of bored and uncomfortable, and I just know it's going to get so much more uncomfortable from this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that's a turning point in the movie.
Yeah. Because another thing with Bateman is not only does he not have like emotion and empathy, but he's trying to put on this persona that he cares about things, that it's performative. The whole speech in the one restaurant where he's talking about we need to end apartheid, and it's just, he's got the check boxes and he's going to list every single thing that's wrong and that we need to fix because he knows that's what people want to hear. And like Lewis comes back with it, it's so insightful type of thing. It's like, no, it's completely hollow. Like he doesn't mean any of that whatsoever.
Yeah. And like when at that beginning scene where his friend is being super anti-Semitic and he's like, we shouldn't say about,
Oh yeah.
I kind of had that moment of like, he's right, but also I don't think he really cares.
No, he doesn't, and he has no conviction to it. That's what actually I think what makes the third musical kind of rant interesting is the first one is Huey Lewis. That one's fun because like the performance is great. He's doing the dance. He's like moonwalking with the axe. Like the physical performance of that and the way he's delivering all his lines is just phenomenal. The Phil Collins one is very cold and calculating and just monotone. But the third one where he's talking about Whitney Houston is the one where it almost feels like Bateman has an emotion going on. He just doesn't know what it is or how to understand it, but he's trying. Like it's the one thing that felt almost human about him at that point. But he's also completely spiraled out of control at this stage as well. So because then he goes on to.
I think he just needs to go be gay and jam to Whitney Houston.
Go for it.
That's how we fix society. Be gay and jam to Whitney.
Maybe more being gay and jamming to Whitney Houston, less running around with a chainsaw and nothing but a pair of shoes. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Preferable.
And that was kind of that moment where I'm like, this is definitely, especially the second time watching it, this is definitely in his head because he's running around in an apartment building with a chainsaw blaring and nobody hears it. Nobody comes out. Like, it's definitely all in his head. Also,
I also
go ahead.
Like the idea that like some real, some not.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. That's where I think, to your point, the homeless man probably was, because nobody saw that. That was out in the street, and that scene is especially rough for me because I'm a dog lover. My dog is sitting behind me snoring as we speak, and the fact that it ends with Patrick, stomping on the dog, I was like, oh wow, I hated him already. I hate him more now. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
That is the quickest way to get me to hate your character in a movie is have them harm an animal. And it's one of the reasons why Halloween is one of my favorite horror movies, because you hate Michael Myers and he's terrible. Like, he kills dogs. Like, that alone
So
makes me not like him.
I have not seen Halloween.
It is I
haven't seen.
If I hadn't already done that one, I would have you back for it, because it is my favorite kind of horror slasher. Because
Ooh, have you seen the second Nightmare on Elm Street?
I have.
Oh, that's my favorite horror slasher. But I have not seen a huge pool of them, so it could change over time. Right now,
the thing with Halloween that is a lot of fun is it is pure suspense. There's very little blood in the movie for it being a slasher, but it's so well paced and well constructed. And Michael Myers is just a great villain because he is just the force of nature. He's just a force that can't really be stopped. I loved the...
Yeah, I used to... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I used to hate Halloween scary movies and wouldn't at all, but then I worked in a haunted house for years and I grew to love horror. So every Halloween season, I try to pick a new franchise or pick something new I haven't seen. So I don't usually love the just gory slashers just because, but I don't mind blood and guts and gore for a reason. I loved Repo the Genetic Opera.
Sure.
And that's so just blood and guts and gore everywhere. So.
Oh, yeah. Another good running gag, by the way, in this, in American Psycho, was Patrick Bateman when he would get flustered by somebody and he didn't...
I have to return a tape.
He didn't have an out, and so he would just say...
Where are you going?
I've got to return some videotapes.
Which is such an 80s thing to think about, 80s and 90s. I have to return some videotapes. And that was important back then. You had to get them back on time. You did not want those late fees. And that one just cracks me up. Every time I hear it, there's something about that.
I kept trying to figure out what was important about these tapes. I kept trying to be what's the point? And then I finally realized, he just doesn't know what to say.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually have anything going on in his life. Nope.
He just needs an out. That's well, look at that. I got a thing. I got to return my videotapes. I left the oven on. So
I'm just going to start using that now.
Yeah.
I have to return some videotapes. Let people wonder.
Yep. That's how you get out of any situation. It's a perfect one because they're left confused. By the time they try to figure it out, you're already gone.
Exactly.
So I mentioned the group and how they're so shallow. And there's a line right at the end where they're sitting around the table in the bar. And first of all, I love that when Patrick walks into the bar, and his friends are sitting there, and they're all drinking beer. And then the one guy says, "Oh, I don't know why we're all drinking beer. I need a scotch." And the next shot is Patrick drinking scotch. In his head, he just had the drink that the guy was talking about. I kind of liked that. I did see it in the IMDb page as a goof, right? Like a continuity error. And I'm like, no, that's absolutely 100% on purpose. That's just Bateman's lost in his head. But while they're sitting there, they're trying to get a reservation, and the one guy says,
Now, where do we have reservations at? I mean, I'm not really hungry, but I'd like to have reservations someplace.
It doesn't matter where they're going. He just wants the reservation for the status of going to this place and being seen there. And it's that is the movie, the culture that this movie is depicting in a nutshell. In that one line is just, I'm not even hungry. I just want a reservation.
Yeah. And it's interesting that it's not even at a particular place, because the running thing of Dorsia, they're always trying to get into there. It's not even I want the status of having a reservation at this particular restaurant. It's anything as long as you need a reservation to be there.
Yeah.
I also find it interesting looking at the group. Like, we've spent a lot of time talking about Patrick Bateman and analyzing his character and all that, but I don't think there's a single other character in this movie you could really do that to. Like, they are all so surface and shallow, and it really is the Patrick Bateman show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of those things where him as the narrator, he doesn't know these people well enough to give us anything to really chew on about them, which is why I think, like, the Reese Witherspoon casting, it seemed a little off, but it's like, I don't know her well enough to judge 100%.
Yeah.
You know, like, what do we know about her character? I don't know.
Not much. And the thing with it is, too, they're all so interchangeable. The guy sitting at the table, it's not the same for every single time. I think like one of them swaps out here and there. But yeah, how can you tell? They all are basically just, they went down to central casting and were like, okay, him, and him. They're all 5'10" to 6 feet tall, dark hair, light skin. All right, there you go. You know, it's just...
Yeah, basically... The only two I really noticed was the one who was clearly queer and in the closet, and the one who was later in Sweet Home Alabama with Reese Witherspoon. And I only knew that because I was like, hey, it's the Sweet Home Alabama guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I think that was Josh Lucas. And then, yeah, the Lewis character played by Matt Ross, who had wonderful bow ties. I like that he was always wearing bow ties and nobody else was. And because they're all so focused on their appearance and the labels of their clothes, right? Who the designer is, which for the movie also, as behind the scenes, was tough because certain designers and names didn't want to be associated with it. Like the line where he's... Oh yeah, I can too. But like there's the line where he's laying in bed and the one girl like asleep, her arm just drops and he goes, don't touch the watch. In the book, it's don't touch the Rolex, but Rolex was like, could we not? So they changed the line.
Which also, I wonder if, you know, decades later, if the brands are like, damn, we could have been in this iconic movie on this iconic character. You know, I just wonder.
Yeah, you sometimes do wonder that. Like, because I know Apple, for instance, doesn't want their products to be used by the antagonists or the bad guys in movies. So like the bad guys aren't allowed to have iPhones or
Which
Apple computers.
Just makes me like the bad guys more. I'm sorry. I really don't care what phones people use. I
don't either.
Like an Android personally.
Sure. I'm the same way. So this movie reminded me of another film that I've seen. So every year for this show, the month of August, I spend doing all Nicolas Cage movies because I think that Nicolas Cage is a treasure to the world, and so I want to celebrate him because that man always makes choices. They don't always work, but he's fully committed to whatever those choices are.
Absolutely.
And he did a movie back in the late 80s, I think it was 1988, called Vampire's Kiss. And I don't know if you've seen this or not, but if you haven't,
I have not.
You need to watch this because in that movie, Nicolas Cage he lives in New York, and he's not in Wall Street. I think he's a lawyer or he works for a real estate company maybe or something, but it's an office job. But his character in the movie thinks he is becoming a vampire, and he's slowly descending into madness, and thinks that he's killing people and biting them, sucking their blood, all this kind of stuff. And there was a lot of that character in Patrick Bateman. And I don't know if Brett Easton Ellis had any influence of his novel with Vampire's Kiss, because Vampire's Kiss did come out before that. But I do know that Christian Bale used that Nick Cage performance as some of the basis for what he did for the movie. If you get a chance to watch it,
I need to see this movie.
Yeah, I did it for the first year of Cageapalooza, as I like to call it. So 6 years ago, I think now. But it's phenomenal, and it's out on some of the streaming services somewhere. Watch it, and then if you can find like commentary bits on YouTube where Nick Cage is watching it, doing a DVD style commentary, because they're gold. They're so good. He spent a lot of that shoot in an apartment or a hotel in New York with his cat doing drugs.
Okay.
Because why not?
Sure.
It's fascinating. And the movie itself is just completely insane. But there was I got a lot of feel of that watching this. And I definitely did not the first time because I didn't know of Vampire's Kiss back in 2000. So,
yeah, I need to see this movie now, right away.
Yes.
That
it is.
I have to.
The way I would describe it is not Nick Cage at his best. But it's not Nick Cage at his worst. It is the most Nick Cage gets. Like, this is the movie. You may have seen a clip of it where he goes on a rant talking about filing, and he literally recites the entire alphabet in one scene, talking about how to file stuff in a filing cabinet alphabetically. It's so good.
I have not seen that.
Oh.
I need to. Absolutely will do it. I think the last vampire-y movie I watched that I crossed off my list was The Lost Boys.
Okay. That's a good one.
And I know several people who worked at that haunted house with me, who I think would actually slap me for saying this, but I can see the direct connection between that movie and Twilight.
Oh, for sure. No, I totally can.
Yeah, and I know several people that would be angry with me for saying that, but I'm not saying those vampires in that movie were attractive, because they definitely, on the attractive, not attractive vampire scale, there's been way worse, but I see the connective tissue. I see the people who looked at that and went, okay, but if we went to notch over.
Exactly. No, it's definitely influence there for sure.
Yeah.
I got a couple more clips I have to play because this one was too good. When he finds the model, right? He's sitting at the bar with his friend. It's the scene. It's right after the scene where he leans over and says, "Hey, ask me a question." Like, he's so desperate for the attention. He's got to tell her that. And then they're talking about mergers and acquisitions, and he says he's in murders and executions. But after that scene, they're outside getting a cab, and she's like, "You think I'm dumb, don't you?" And he goes, "No, of course I don't." And she says this.
There's something sweet about you.
There's something sweet about you. No, there isn't. He's a broken person. But there was something about that moment that resonated with me on this watch. I don't know why. It just did. There was like her saying that to him, and I'm just thinking, no, it's not going to go well for you.
No, but I when I saw that, I was like, I 100% get why, like, where that came from for her, because I can see this, because like we've been talking about, this very sad, broken, empty person, kind of like that kicked puppy type vibe that he's giving off, that he's just like needs attention, needs help, needs something to save him. I can see why she would see how like sad, broken he is, and go, "There's something sweet about you." I don't think to spin it in a nice way to his face, because I don't think you'd go to someone and be like, "You seem like you need help," you know. But yeah. I definitely, that felt like a clue to me of how he kind of comes off to others in his, outside of his, this is the Patrick Bateman story that we're seeing through his eyes.
Yeah, I can see that.
So that was my interpretation.
One last cool fact, filmmaking wise, the shot where he pulls the mask off at the beginning during his skincare routine, did it in one take. And they were worried that it was going to like tear and not happen in one full piece, but nope, nailed it first take. And I think that's awesome, because that's such an iconic visual of him, just these dead eyes as he just slowly pulls off that face mask.
Yeah, that was really good. It kind of makes it better that it was one take.
It really does. Well, I'm really glad that you watched this and came to talk about it. And I like your thoughts on it, because you definitely view it differently than I do. And I even, in watching it again feel a lot differently about it than I did when I first saw it. But also, like, getting a different perspective on it is a lot of fun. So I'm really glad you got to watch this and come and talk with me about this. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun hearing your perspective too, because I have been very curious to see, now that I've seen it, to, look at all the YouTube deep dives and perspectives, and I've refrained. So this was really fun to get to hear someone else, and now I will be watching probably too many YouTube videos about this movie because it really is. I watched it and I was just like, I have so many thoughts. I see why it's one that people still talk about. Love it, hate it, like it, in the middle. I hope I didn't make it sound like I hated it, because I really didn't.
No, not at all. Because there are, like I said, there are movies that are really well done that you're just like, yeah, but I don't want to watch it again. Like another Nick Cage one I watched last year is Leaving Las Vegas, right? That's the movie he won his Academy Award for. It's phenomenal, but it's not a movie I'm rushing out to watch.
Nicolas Cage has an Academy Award.
Yeah. He won an Academy Award for Leaving Las Vegas as a character trying to drink himself to death.
I enjoy the analysis and all that, but I feel just so out of my depth talking to you. Know so much, and I am so impressed. Well, it's been very fun to talk to the Master Jedi about movies.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, it's just one of those things where, like, that movie was phenomenal, but I'm not probably ever going to watch it again because it's just the way it goes about it and the story it tells is rough. So that absolutely happens. Or a movie like this, if you need that message to come through and have something concrete to it, and this movie does not give you that, I can see where it's like, well, I just need to nope out of it because.
Yeah, I feel like it was built to be a movie that had something to say. And there were so many times where I was like, that's so poignant for today. That's still applicable. Like, it felt like a very strong social commentary movie. And so I was really enjoying it for that. And then to have that, I felt just fall flat at the end. I was just like, well, damn. Like, you had me. You had that thing I love, and then the follow through. But I definitely understand more now your perspective as more of like the character study of it, why that would be more appealing.
Yeah.
Still not for me, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's part of it, right? That how when I get into a movie, I really do try to find characters to identify with or to latch onto and then find their story. If it's that kind of movie. For me, this is. But you're right. There is some social commentary there. That does make me wonder. We talked earlier about this doesn't need a remake. That does make me wonder, would a remake explore that more, and would that be worth it or not? So I'm kind of on the fence.
Like, you're going to do a remake, the only thing I would say is, you know how Interview with the Vampire, the TV show, is very different, and it's like new setting, new dynamics to explore. If they did that, like if they made it, we're going to set this in 2025. Who is the Patrick Bateman of 2025? That could be really interesting.
Yeah. I think what I worry about is if a remake of this happened, somebody would say, well, we're going to go back and we're going to faithfully adapt the novel.
Yeah.
And that we don't need, because it's 35 years old and it's tough. Like it's rough material, because Patrick is even less likable in that than he is here, I think. So I'm with you.
Impressive.
Right? But I'm with you. If they were to do something like this, I think it's sort of, I don't mind taking the bones of a story and reinterpreting it for a modern day. Like when I saw Maltese Falcon for the first time, I thought this would be a fun one to remake and set in a different era, but the same type of story, and recast it and do all that. So yeah, I'm with you. If you set this in 2025 or current day, and you've got the influencer culture and kind of all that sort of stuff going on, how does it work? And maybe we have seen some sort of reinterpretations of what this story was trying to be, and I haven't caught them yet. I'm sure, because I know there's been a couple horror movies especially that have dealt with influencers. There's like one with a live stream, I think was what it was called, or something. I can't remember. There's so many movies out there now.
Yeah.
But
one movie that I am curious if you have ever seen, because we talked about like a movie that does a plot twist really well. The Power of the Dog with Benedict Cumberbatch. It was, I think, up for Best Picture one year, but didn't win. Did you ever see that?
I have not. And I know I heard about it, but I know very little about the movie itself. So maybe a future episode. We'll find out.
What, I was going to say,
Stay
wait, you
tuned.
haven't seen. That is one of those movies that I almost turned off so many times. And now years later, I still think about it. And I still, when people are like, what's some of the best, is that one.
Okay.
So
All right.
if
I'm
I
making a
here
note
I
to
am
myself
bullying
right
you
now.
into bringing me back. I demanded the first episode, and now I'm like, you want to do another one?
The Power of the Dog. I'm writing myself a note because I will forget otherwise. Although you won't, and that's the important thing.
No, I will annoy you about this. Sorry, you're stuck with me now. You're too cool.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a lot of fun, and we will do it again for sure. Whether it's The Power of the Dog or something else, we'll find a movie. We will definitely do this again. That is, however, that will go on the list because I like Benedict
There are many
Cumberbatch.
movies I have not seen, so.
All right. Well, do you have anything you want to tell people about that you're working on or anything like that you want to promote?
I have a TikTok called Reading Animorphs. It's not like trying to be an influencer or anything, but I just sometimes post fun takes about Animorphs or the Hunger Games or reading fun media stuff if you care, and if you don't, I respect that too. Besides that, I just have a day job.
Perfect. Reading Animorphs?
Yep.
Awesome.
The icon is one of the book covers where a guy is morphing into a cockroach. So if you see that, that's me.
Awesome. Check that out. Reading Animorphs on TikTok for sure. Joe, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. This really has.
It has been.
I look forward to having
I hope
another
the live
conversation.
chat has enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if you want to be part of that live chat, I record this show Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time at twitch.tv/tvstravis. You can come hang out, yell at me, let me know that my microphone is bad, or if you've got questions or thoughts about the movie we're talking about, definitely check that out. And then the show comes out every Wednesday, anywhere you can get your podcasts, including a video version on YouTube. If you want to get the show a few days early and you don't watch it live, you can become a patron. Patreon.com/WYHS. For as little as $5 a month, you get episodes a few days early. They will always be commercial free. So far, I don't do a lot of commercial stuff, but if there ever are, the Patreon feed will always be that way. You also get my first watch diaries, which is I'm going through series. I went through The Fall of the House of Usher, and I am in the middle of Star Wars Ahsoka right now. So I watch episodes and just give my thoughts on a series, and that is patron exclusive. The Patreon also helps me to do things like go to events such as Dragon Con I will be at in a few months, Nerdtacular next year. I was just in Las Vegas a few weeks ago doing the show live, and it's the generosity.
It is looking like I will also be at Dragon Con. If you come to the Animorphs Anonymous panel, I think I have been drafted into that as long as I'm there. So
awesome. Well, and we'll definitely have to hang out at Dragon Con then at some point, for sure, because I will be around. But yeah, so next time on this show, I've got to pull up my list and find out what we're watching, because I can never remember more than a week ahead. Hammond Chamberlain is coming back, and he's got me watching another movie from the year 2000 called China Strike Force. And what I know about this is it's got one of my favorites ever, Mark Dacascos, in it. And I can't wait, because I love cheeseball action movies. This sounds like exactly one of those. The title alone had me. Hammond got a hold of me. He's like, have you ever seen China Strike Force? No, but now I want to. So that's what's happening next week. And I've got some more fun stuff coming up. I'm going to finally watch Parasite in a couple of weeks. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, I've never seen Parasite either.
I love Bong Joon-ho. Every movie of his. I just saw Mickey 17 earlier this year. That was phenomenal. And this is the one that won him his Academy Award, so I probably should watch it. So I'm going to do that in a couple weeks.
Oh my gosh, Sorry, after we get off the live stream, I have actor questions.
Excellent. So yeah, that'll wrap this one up. If you enjoy this show, you want to find other things that I'm working on, head on over to tvstravis.com. It's links to all of the shows that I'm doing, including the new one I just launched with my friend Steven, where we deep dive into film franchises or a subject of some kind. Right now, our first season, we watched all of the Fast and Furious franchise and talk about it. So you definitely want to check that out. That was a wild ride. But yeah, you can find all that at tvstravis.com, including links to merchandise and the Patreon there. So Joe, thank you so much for being here. We are definitely going to do this again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and until next time, just remember to enjoy your movies, everybody, and let's be excellent to each other. This has been Wait You Haven't Seen.
And return your videotapes on time.
What does Mr. Grinch want for Christmas? And don't say breast implants again.